I work at a game development company in Orlando, Florida. We're a small team of passionate developers, each dedicated to our craft. While it's fulfilling, the job comes with its fair share of stress, especially during crunch time before a game's deadline. Late nights at the office were something I had gotten used to, but one night turned into an experience I'll never forget. It was a stormy Wednesday evening, the kind of night that feels like it's pulled straight from a horror movie. Thunder echoed through the city, and rain pounded against the windows like nature's own metronome. The occasional lightning strikes lit up the darkened streets outside, creating fleeting glimpses of a world otherwise shrouded in black. I was in my office, the glow of my computer screen the only light in the room. The rain's steady rhythm had become my companion, helping me focus as I worked on debugging a stubborn piece of code. The deadline loomed over me like a shadow, and the pressure to deliver was immense. Everyone else had already left, except for Chaz, my coworker. He was also burning the midnight oil, trying to tie up loose ends on his part of the project. By now, it was nearing 8:30 p.m. when Chaz knocked softly on my door. His face looked as drained as I felt. "I'm heading out," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "You good locking up?" "Yeah, I've got it," I replied, offering a tired smile. He nodded, gave me a quick wave, and disappeared down the hall. Moments later, I heard the heavy slam of the front door echo through the building. And just like that, I was alone. Our office is in the shape of an L. The entrance is at one end, and my office is tucked away in the corner at the far end of the shorter hallway. It's the perfect spot for focus or isolation. The silence was deafening after Chaz left. Only the sound of the rain tapping against my window kept me company. The occasional rumble of thunder in the distance seemed to underscore the eerie quiet. I tried to shake off the creeping unease as I turned back to my screen. After a while, fatigue began to set in. My eyelids grew heavy, and my concentration started to waver. To keep myself awake, I decided to make a quick trip to the kitchen for some coffee. The kitchen was located down the longer hallway, near the front entrance. As I walked through the empty halls, the sound of my footsteps seemed unnaturally loud. The shadows cast by the dim emergency lights stretched and shifted, almost as if they were alive. I reached the kitchen and started up the coffee maker, leaning against the counter as it heated up. The low hum of the machine was oddly comforting, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone in the silence. Then, I heard a door softly closing. The sound was subtle but distinct. I froze, straining my ears to pinpoint where it came from. It wasn't the heavy front door, this was quieter, like one of the smaller office doors. My first thought was that Chaz might have come back for something. "Chaz?" I called out, my voice echoing faintly down the hall. No reply. Curiosity and a touch of unease got the better of me. Leaving my coffee unfinished, I stepped out of the kitchen and into the hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered faintly, adding to the unsettling atmosphere. I moved cautiously, checking each door as I passed. They were all locked. When I reached my own hallway, the short leg of the L, I noticed something strange. My office door, which I distinctly remembered leaving wide open, was now shut. A cold chill ran down my spine. There was no draft in the building, all the windows were closed tightly to keep out the storm. The thought of someone else being in the office crossed my mind, but it seemed absurd. Still, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that I wasn't alone. I approached the door slowly, my heart pounding. Taking a deep breath, I pushed it open with more force than necessary, half expecting someone to jump out at me. But there was no one there. My office was exactly as I had left it. The chair, the desk, my computer, everything was in its place. I stood there for a moment, trying to make sense of it. Maybe the door hadn't been open after all. Maybe I was just tired, and my memory was playing tricks on me. Deciding to chalk it up to exhaustion, I sat back down at my desk and tried to refocus on my work. The storm outside raged on. Lightning flashed every few minutes, illuminating the room for brief, blinding moments. Each flash startled me more than the last, my nerves already frayed from the earlier incident. I glanced at the clock. It was nearing midnight. Time to call it a night. I saved my progress, powered down my computer, and reached for my bag. As I clicked the shutdown button, the screen went black, and that's when I saw it. In the reflection of the screen, a figure stood behind me, a woman. She was pale, her hair dark and matted, her eyes hollow. She didn't move, didn't make a sound. She just stood there, staring. My entire body went cold. My breath caught in my throat, and my heart raced so fast it felt like it would burst. Somehow, I managed to keep my composure. I didn't scream. I didn't turn around. Instead, I stood up slowly, grabbed my bag, and walked to the door as calmly as I could. Every step felt like an eternity. My mind screamed at me to run, but I didn't dare. I reached the hallway and kept walking, the urge to look back growing stronger with every second. But I didn't. Not until I was far enough away. Once I reached the stairs, I broke into a sprint. I raced down the steps 2 at a time, my heart pounding in my ears. The storm outside greeted me with open arms as I burst through the building's front doors and into the rain. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking as I unlocked my car. Once inside, I locked the doors and took a moment to catch my breath. The fear didn't subside, though. Something told me I wasn't safe yet. I glanced up at the office window, my office window. The light was still on, and then I saw it. The blinds shifted slightly, as if someone was peeking through them. My stomach dropped. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I started the car and drove away. The image of that figure burned into my mind. When I got home, I immediately called my boss, Miranda. I told her everything about the door, the woman, and the blinds. She was understandably freaked out and promised to contact the night security guard to check the office. Later that night, Miranda called me back. The security guard had gone through the entire building but found nothing. According to her, the footage from the hallway camera near the kitchen showed no sign of anyone else in the office that night. But I know what I saw. That woman wasn't a figment of my imagination. The next day, I asked around to see if anyone else had experienced anything strange in the office. Some people shrugged it off, but a few coworkers admitted to feeling uneasy when working late, as though they were being watched. One even mentioned hearing faint footsteps when no one else was around. Since that night, I've never stayed late at the office again. Whatever or whoever I encountered that stormy evening remains a mystery. And honestly, I'm okay with never finding out. It started as an ordinary shift, one I had done countless times. I was managing the building alone for the night, keeping an eye on things and ensuring everything was locked up securely. Most nights were quiet, almost dull, but this one was different. It all began with the lights in the basement flickering. The building was old, so electrical issues weren't uncommon. But something about the way the lights went out entirely left me uneasy. My flashlight was dim and barely cut through the darkness, but I had to investigate. I descended the creaking staircase, the air growing colder with every step. As I reached the basement floor, the beam of my flashlight barely illuminated the expansive, cluttered room. Shelves lined the walls, filled with storage boxes that cast long, ominous shadows. At first, everything seemed normal, just the usual mess of old supplies and equipment. But as I moved further into the basement, I noticed the faint sound of something shifting. like a faint scrape against the concrete. Then I saw it. Standing in the far corner, partially obscured by shadows, was a figure. It was tall, unnaturally so, and hunched over, as though its height forced it to stoop. The flashlight beam trembled as I tried to focus on it. It held something in its hand, a long object that could have been a crowbar or worse, a weapon. I froze, trying to process what I was seeing. The figure didn't move at first, but then its head turned slightly toward me, catching the edge of my flashlight beam. My breath caught in my throat. Its face was pale and stretched unnaturally long, with hollow, sunken eyes that seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. The creature or man was bald, which only added to its unsettling appearance. I couldn't bring myself to look any longer. My instincts screamed at me to run, and I obeyed without hesitation. As I darted past the figure, I yelled, "The cops are coming. You need to leave now." My voice echoed off the cold, concrete walls. But the figure didn't react, not in the way I expected. There was no chase, no sudden movement, just the oppressive silence that followed me as I raced up the stairs. When I reached the top, I slammed the basement door shut, locked it, and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. My hands shook as I fumbled for my phone and dialed 911. The police investigation within minutes. The distant wail of sirens broke the night's silence. Relief washed over me as several NYPD officers arrived. I quickly explained what I had seen, my words tumbling out in a rush. They didn't question me much. The smashed basement doors and the obvious signs of tampering with the circuit box lent credibility to my story. At least 4 officers descended into the basement, flashlights and weapons drawn. I stayed behind in the lobby, feeling useless and helpless. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to imagine what they were seeing down there, or worse, who they were confronting. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. When the officers finally returned, they were empty-handed. "There's no one down there," one of them said, though his tone was far from dismissive. "We checked every corner, every hiding spot. Whoever it was, they're gone now." Gone? How could that be? I had just seen the figure minutes before the police arrived. The officers assured me that they would continue to monitor the area, but their words did little to comfort me. An electrician was called in to address the power issues. He discovered that the circuit box had indeed been tampered with, another sign that someone had been down there. Yet, despite their thorough search, the police found no evidence of the intruder. I tried to rationalize it. The basement had multiple staircases leading back up to different parts of the building. Maybe the figure had slipped out unnoticed. But that explanation didn't stop the unease gnawing at my mind. Sleepless nights the following days were a blur. I couldn't bring myself to return to work immediately, so I took several sick days. Every night, as I lay in bed, the image of that towering figure haunted me. The pale, elongated face, the hollow eyes, the way it seemed to absorb the light. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was still watching me, lurking in the shadows, waiting. I found myself checking every corner of my room, every shadowed area, half expecting to see it standing there. Even weeks later, the fear lingered. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, my heart racing. The logical part of my mind told me it was over, that the figure, whoever or whatever it was gone. But a small, insistent voice in the back of my mind whispered otherwise. The nurse's office incident, years before that chilling basement encounter, I had experienced something equally unsettling at my first jobs in 2002. I worked the graveyard shift at a call center in Makati. The office was new, with an unusual layout that resembled an elongated donut. The elevator lobby was the hole, while the hallways around it formed the donut. Half the office was fully operational, brightly lit and bustling with activity. The other half, however, was still under construction, unfinished floors, exposed wires, and a pervasive sense of abandonment. At night, the guards would turn off the lights entirely on that side, leaving it shrouded in darkness. One night, a teammate of mine, who was prone to migraines, started feeling unwell. Our team leader suggested she visit the nurse's office, which was located in the unfinished section of the office. I offered to accompany her, as the area was creepy even during the day. When we reached the nurse's office, the lights were on, and through the vertical window on the door, we could see the typical setup: a desk, medical cabinets, and a bed. But the room was empty, no nurse in sight. We decided to return later, hoping the nurse had stepped out for a break. But when we came back, the lights in the office were off. Frustrated, I tried the door handle, and to my surprise, it opened. What we saw inside froze us in our tracks. The fully equipped clinic we had seen earlier was gone. In its place was an unfinished room with bare concrete walls and floors. There was no desk, no bed, no cabinets, nothing except a single dim nightlight plugged into an exposed socket. The unexplainable chill as we stood there, trying to make sense of what we were seeing, a security guard approached us. He demanded to know why we were poking around in the unfinished section. We tried to explain what had happened, but he was skeptical. While we were talking, the air around us suddenly turned icy cold. The temperature dropped so abruptly that all three of us stopped mid-conversation. My heart pounded as an intense, inexplicable fear washed over me. My teammate, already shaken, burst into tears, her sobs echoing in the empty hallway. The guard, visibly unnerved, quickly locked the door to the nurse's office and escorted us back to the main section of the office. When we recounted the incident to our team leader, he listened in stunned silence. The matter was never brought up again, but the experience left an indelible mark on me. Reflection, both of these experiences have stayed with me over the years, serving as constant reminders that some things defy explanation. Whether it was the pale figure in the basement or the disappearing nurse's office, I've learned that the unknown can be more terrifying than anything we can imagine. If you've ever had a chilling encounter or a brush with the supernatural, you'll understand what I mean. Sometimes, the scariest moments are the ones that leave you questioning your reality, wondering if the things you saw were real or something far more sinister. Would you like to hear more? Thank you for watching this chilling story. If this tale gave you goosebumps or left you questioning what might be lurking in the shadows, let me know in the comments below. Your support means everything, so don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Share it with your friends who love horror, and subscribe to my channel for more spine-tingling stories every week. Also, hit that bell icon to stay updated. You never know when the next haunting tale might drop. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, some doors are better left unopened.